Hello my dear grade 8 students. So in the earlier lessons we discussed about several things related to the electricity lesson. But now in this lesson, the lesson number 11, here we are going to study about several things related to the biological processes related to the plants, right? So our 11th lesson is going to reflect about main biological processes in plants. So before I'm going to enter to my lesson part, let me ask you a simple question. What kind of a thing is called as this a biological process? What kind of a thing is called a biological process? A biological process means any kind of a living process that occur in organisms. In simple, now if you take the process of respiration, so that's the process which creates energy within the body of an organism. Photosynthesis that occur in plants, it's related with the nutrition, right? So plants are satisfying the requirement of food by the use of photosynthesis. Then if you take the excretion process, which we discussed under the 9th lesson, right? The excretion process. So these processes are simply referred as biological processes. Specialty is in here that these processes, the biological processes, they are going to mainly occur only in living organisms. These things are going to occur in living organisms only. Now, if you take respiration, respiration is going to occur within living organisms only, plants and animals and microorganisms, right? And if you take the process nutrition, that's also the same, right? Nutrition is also going to occur within organisms only, living organisms only. So all of these things which occur inside living organisms are referred as biological processes. Biological processes. So respiration, nutrition, locomotion, excretion, then after that reproduction, all of these things. Even you can take coordination, then response given to a certain stimuli. These things can also be taken as biological processes. So all the processes or all things, right? All the things which a normal living thing could do can be referred as a biological process. A biological process. The other thing is that a biological process is really important for the life or the living things, right? So without these biological process, without some biological processes, organisms can't live, right? So for an example, if an organism can't respire, right? If an organism can't respire, definitely that organism is going to die. It's because respiration is a main biological process that occurs in organisms which helps in production of energy within the body. So without the energy needed for these activities, the organism would definitely die. So there are like several things, like in the earlier part which I have discussed, there are several things which are very important for the organism, but without these processes, if these processes are not going to occur with an organism, definitely that one would die. So these biological processes are really important for an organism, right? So this is a brief about the biological processes. So you know that living things can be divided into three main categories as plants, animals and microorganisms, right? So we can identify several living features or biological features or biological processes in animals by just looking at them. right? By just looking at them, we can say that this organism or this animal is going to respire. We'll ignore about the microorganisms part, right? So by looking through a microscope, you know that we can say that these organisms are going to locomote from one place to another. We can observe the living features in them also. But we'll ignore the microorganisms. Let's compare about animals and plants. So you know that plants are going to respire. However, there's a thing that we can't directly show, or we can't exactly get an observation to show that plants are going to respire. Plants are going to do photosynthesis. Like that way, we can't see from our naked eye. However, those processes are going to happen within a plant, right? Now, if you take a certain type of an animal is definitely getting their nutrition. It's going to eat, right? So we can see it with our bare eyes, with our naked eyes. There's no issue in it. But however, if you take a plant, now the process of photosynthesis, we can't clearly observe within it. Observe means, in the sense, here we can't observe that thing from our naked eye. There's no possible observation to show that there is photosynthesis going to happen within a plant. However, the plant is going to grow. So thereby we know that it's going to take some amount of a nutrition, some kind of a nutrition from somewhere or within themselves. We know that. And we also know that plants are going to provide their nutrition by using the process photosynthesis. So within this lesson part, we are mainly discussing how to investigate about those factors, how to investigate about those main biological processes that's going to occur within plants, right? And to show that these processes are going to occur with some examples and some experiments. So my dear children, this is a basic structure or basic brief about the biological processes that's going to occur within plants. So especially we are providing here some examples related to the biological processes plants. We're going to show that this process is going to occur by using several experiments and their related observations through conclusions. Right then. So let's move on to see what are the main things or main headings we are discussing about this 11th lesson, biological processes in plants. Right. So my dear children, under the lesson, main biological processes in plants, under the 11th lesson, we'll be first of all discussing about the photosynthesis. As I told you once in the earlier part when we are discussing about the brief related to the main biological processes, I told you that photosynthesis is the process that creates the nutrition relevant for the plants, right? They're producing their food by themselves. And you know that therefore these plants are referred as autotrophic organisms, as they can produce their own food, right? As the plants can produce their own food, these things are referred as autotrophic organisms. So photosynthesis is the process which creates food within the plant. Food in the sense in here simply glucose, right? Glucose. So glucose is the main product created during the photosynthesis process. So we'll be discussing about further things related to the photosynthesis under the photosynthesis lesson part, right? So I'm just giving you a brief, okay? So you know that plants are going to utilize carbon dioxide and water during the process of photosynthesis. And also plants are going to utilize the solar energy or sunlight as the main source of energy in production of food or else during the photosynthesis process. So these are the main things that we have studied relevant to the photosynthesis part, okay? And you already know that it's the main process which keeps the carbon dioxide and oxygen gas in a balanced level at our environment, right? So that means it's going to absorb carbon dioxide from the environment and it's going to release oxygen gas, which is very helpful for the combustion process and for the respiration of organisms. Organisms means especially animals and other organisms living in the earth. So that just a brief related to the photosynthesis. So we'll be discussing further things related to the photosynthesis under our first main heading, right? Then after that, the transportation. Transportation is really simple, my dear children. If you take transportation is the process of transporting materials from one place to another in a plant. Now, if you take photosynthesis is mainly going to occur within the leaves in a plant. Leaf is the main organ that carries the photosynthesis process. However, the food produced within the leaves should travel to each and every place of the plant in order to grow, right? For their growth, this food which is produced within the plant leaf should travel all around the plant. So this process of transporting substances is the transportation in simple, right? So like that way, there are several ways of transportation. Transportation of water from roots to the parts of the plants, right? So that is also a method of a transportation. So like that way, there are several transportations which are going to occur within a plant. And even in animals also, this transportation is going to occur. Mainly animals are utilizing the blood, which is inside the body. Blood is the one which is going to help to dissolve almost every particles, almost every material that you're going to take into your body. For a simple example, you're going to take medicine if you are going to having some headache, right? A painkiller, right? Like a paracetamol. So, type of a medicine that we use most often for our fever conditions and for headaches. So, let's imagine that you are having a headache, but however, we are drinking paracetamol to our stomach. We're not going to take a hole in our head and not going to insert that paracetamol into our head, no? Right? But even though the head is aching, we know that we are drinking paracetamol to our stomach. So what happens here is that these medicines within the stomach, they are going to dissolve and get collected into our blood. Blood is going to absorb all the medicinal parts into it. Then after that, it's been traveling to the relevant parts through the blood. So that's how the transpiration occurs within our body. So the transpiration of excretory substances, relevant hormones, medicine, food extracts, all of these things are traveling within our body with the help of blood. In the same way, we are discussing how the transportation is going to occur within plants, right? Under the second main biological process, the transportation. Then after that, we are going to discuss about the next process called the diffusion, right? Diffusion. So in the diffusion part, we'll be discussing about what kind of a thing is a diffusion, right? And what are the examples that's going to take the diffusion process within a plant. So I'm not going to explain what do you mean by the diffusion, because under the diffusion part, we'll be discussing that thing in detail. However, a diffusion is a process which helps to exchange particles between outer environment and the plant. For an example, you know that oxygen is going to release from leaves to our environment during the photosynthesis process, and carbon dioxide relevant for the photosynthesis process is also being absorbed by the leaves from our environment, right? So you already know these two things going to happen. Now my dear children, this exchange of particles from the leaves, like exchange of carbon dioxide and exchange of oxygen, right? Absorption of oxygen, absorption of carbon dioxide during the photosynthesis, and release of oxygen gas during the photosynthesis, mainly happening through the process called the diffusion, right? Those two processes are mainly happening through the diffusion process. So we'll be discussing about the diffusion process in detail under the diffusion part. So I have provided you some examples. So diffusion is a special process that occur within plants, right? It is a special process that occur within plants, and it helps for the exchange of substances, right? It helps for the exchange of substances like carbon dioxide and oxygen, right? So the diffusion. Then you are given the next part, osmosis. Osmosis is also closely related to the diffusion process. However, there is a slight bit of a difference, right? Now, for an example, release of oxygen gas to the environment through the stomata or through plant leaves is going to happen through the diffusion process. However, absorption of water necessary for the photosynthesis process is absorbed by the plant roots by the process of osmosis. So there is a slight bit of a difference here, right? A very slight difference. So we'll be discussing these differences under the osmosis part. So now I have given you just a brief what's going to happen over there. It's also a type of a material exchange that's going to occur with the plant and the outer environment. However, unlike the diffusion, there is a small bit of a difference in it. It's also happening because of the diffusion, but however, there is a difference, right? So osmosis and diffusion, both are closely related, but however, there's a small bit of a difference. So even though there is a difference, those two processes are mainly reflecting about the exchange of particles within outer environment and the plant itself, right? Exchange of the particles, osmosis and diffusion. Then after that, we'll be discussing about the transpiration process, right? The process of transpiration. So I think you know about the transpiration right now, right? You already know about the transpiration process. So under the diversity of plants lesson, we already discussed about how the transpiration process is going to occur. So transpiration is the process of releasing water as water vapor through the stomata in the plant leaves, right? Through the stomata in the plant leaves, the release of water vapor is referred as the transpiration. And even we discussed that in plant diversity part, in order to minimize the transpiration process in xerophatic, the plants who are living in xerophatic environments or xerophatic plants, right? Plants who are living in arid areas, right? Like in deserts, right? If you take deserts have like an extreme temperature or hot temperature. So that means the release of water vapor from those plants should be minimized. Otherwise, the plant would die without water, right? So my dear children, transpiration, it helps for the release of water vapor to the environment, right? But in the gaseous state through stomata. So it helps for the, and we discussed that under the plant diversity lesson. All of these things we discussed earlier. I'm just remembering you what do you mean by the transpiration process, right? So under the transpiration process, we discussed that transpiration is a very useful process that is going to occur within the plants. Transpiration is really important for the survival of the plant, right? If the transpiration is not going to occur, then there's a possibility that the plant is going to die. So it helps for the transportation of substances, especially water, throughout the plant. Now you know that roots are the ones which are going to absorb water. However, these water should travel to the upper parts of the body. So transpiration helps in that process, right? Transpiration is going to help in that process. It helps to transport water to the upper parts of the body, transpiration, and it helps to maintain the proper water level within the plant body. So like that way, there are several uses in transpiration as well. However, if the temperature going to increase in that environment, the process of transpiration also going to increase. So there is a possibility that plant may die if it is not going to receive enough amount of water, because in the end, when the transpiration is going to increase, it's going to release heavy amount of water. So that's why in arid areas or in normal drought seasons, if you do not water smaller plants, it would die, right? So that's a simple brief about the transpiration process. So transpiration is also a main biological process that's going to occur within the plants. Then, my dear children, we'll be discussing about the process called guttation, right? The process called guttation. To observe the process of guttation, right? You know that now we are getting up early in the morning, right? To go to school. So if you are living in a certain like village kind of an area, okay, in towns, these things are actually not being observed more often. But however, if you are living in a certain village type of an area, then I think you have seen special plants, right? Special plants, colocasia-like plants, right? In day-to-day life, we refer that thing as haberella, right? Colocasia. So, like that way, if you observe that kind of a leaf, okay, colocasia leaf, okay, but it should be in the morning, early morning, like around 6 to 7 in the AM, okay, early morning. So, when you are going to observe that plants, you may see that there are several water drops contained within that plant leaf. It's a heavy, it's having a large surface area, but however, there are water drops within the plant. I think you may have seen that, right? So, my dear children, the thing which is happening over there, now you might imagine that this water is coming because of the rain, which is going to happen in the earlier night. But however, in the days which the rain is not going to occur also, there are several water drops within the plant leaves of these haberella or colocasia plants. Okay. Here, the water is released during the night in the form of not in water vapor, but water droplets. In the liquid state. During the transpiration, right, the water is released to the environment in the gaseous state as water vapor. But however, during the guttation process, it is being released to the environment during or as a liquid material. So that's the main difference between the transpiration and the guttation, right? And there are special structures within a plant in order to do the process guttation, right? So guttation can be clearly observed in the plants haberella or colocasia plants, okay? The process guttation. It is also relevant to the release of water, but however, in the guttation, this release of water is going to occur as a liquid or else as liquid droplets, okay? But in the transpiration process, it's going to happen as a gaseous medium, water vapor. So that's the guttation process. So these are the main biological processes that we are going to study within the plants. All of these things will be discussed in brief, and their uses and how they are going to occur, and relevant experiments for these processes will all be discussed within this lesson, my dear children. So I hope that you will stay with me until the end of the lesson. Then after that, we'll be discussing all the questions related to our textbook. Then after that, some extra sessions of questions later in the lesson. So stay with me till the end of the lesson to get a sound knowledge about these biological processes in plants, right? So Under these biological processes, once again, we'll see what are the things that we are going to study. We'll be studying about the photosynthesis and the transportation. Then after, diffusion, osmosis, transpiration, and finally, guttation. Right? So these are the main areas that we are going to study about the main biological processes in plants. So I have given you a brief discussion, or I have given you a brief on each and every topic which is given in here. Now it's time to move on to study the first and foremost main topic under the main biological processes in plants. So you know that already. First of all, we are going to discuss about the photosynthesis, right? So photosynthesis is the main biological process that we are going to study first within this lesson. Okay, right. So my dear children, it's given, plants are considered as the main living component that contributes much for the proper existence and security of the environment. So plants, it's given that a main point, right? It's a very important point. Plants are considered as the main living component that contributes much for the proper existence and the security of the environment. You take our environment, our biosphere, right? So our environment, our biosphere is mainly getting protected because of the plants. Plants are much important for the survival of each and every organism who is living in our planet Earth. Right? For each and every organism who is living in our planet Earth, plants are very important. You know that plants are the ones which are producing food relevant or necessary for the each and every organism, each and every animal living in our Earth. Even we depend on the food that is prepared by plants. So you may say that if you take an animal like cow, deer, ox, those types of organisms are, yes, definitely they are depending on the plants. However, animals like dog, cats, they're not going to eat plant materials, no. Right? They can even eat fish, meat, and eggs, and also they can survive me. Right? But however, my dear children, in order to produce these kinds of stuff, like what? Meat. We'll see what are the things that's going to eat by a cat. Cat is going to eat, let's take a caterpillar, or else a grasshopper, right? A rat. So the main source of food contained within these organisms also made up with plants, right? Grasshoppers are going to eat small insects, but small insects are going to depend on the plants. So ultimately, the energy source or the nutrition contained within the grasshopper or rats is also being obtained from plants. Otherwise, the smaller ones would not survive in the environment. If the smaller insects or smaller animals are not there, the larger ones will not survive, right? It's obvious. For a simple example, lion can't live without meat. Lion is going to hunt like animals, rabbits, deers, and all the other herbivore animals. Herbivore animals going to depend on the plants. Or if there is no plants, no herbivore animals, if there are no herbivore animals, then lion can't also find their food. Right? So if you take each and every animal in our environment going to depend directly or indirectly on plants. So it's the main component that contribute in production of food, which is much more important for the survival of each and every animal living in our earth. And it helps for the security of the biosphere as well. I told you earlier that plants are going to balance the oxygen and the carbon dioxide level in the atmosphere, or that level in our earth. It is a very important process, right? What will happen if the carbon dioxide level is going to increase? You know that nowadays our earth is facing that kind of a situation, right? Nowadays there are several severe conditions which is going to occur because of that thing. Floods, heavy snow, drought seasons, right? Changes in seasons quite fast, changes in climatic patterns. All of these things are getting mainly related with the increase of temperature. So we refer this thing as the global warming. The global warming is mainly happening because of increasing gases like carbon dioxide. Why does the carbon dioxide is going to increase in the environment? Mainly because of there are not enough plants to absorb the carbon dioxide which is given out to the environment. Humans are going to destroy, right? Humans are going to destroy main areas that has forest and plantation. It's going to affect for the entire planet. Now gradually that thing has already now started, right? So it's really important to protect these plants. It's providing us the security as well, which we needed. It's going to balance each and every, right, component, like the most important components, oxygen and carbon dioxide balance within our environment. So this point which is given under the security is very important, right? It's a very important fact. Plants are going to secure entire biosphere, right, by doing those kind of things. So children, here you can see plants are considered as the main living component that contribute much for the proper existence and for the security of the environment, right? Plants carry out a number of biological processes for their existence. Let us study about the photosynthesis. Now we are going to study about the photosynthesis, a main process that's going to occur within the plant. Then the next topic also given, we discussed that thing earlier also, the autotrophic thing. So it's related with the photosynthesis. Let's see what do you mean by the autotrophic thing once again. Plants are autotrophic, which means they can produce their own food. Hence, plants contribute for the existence of themselves as well as animals. So my dear children, plants are autotrophic organisms. Okay, plants are autotrophic organisms. They can produce their own food. Plants can produce their own food. So by production of that food, plants are going to synthesize, right? Synthesize sunlight or solar energy into chemical energy, right? Each and every organism, in order to survive, each and every organism should obtain energy. Now we receive energy from the food obtained from plants, mainly from plants, right? If you're going to eat meat, right, or fish or eggs or any other kind of animal materials, no matter the material, if you go for the root, in the root there are plants. Like in the earlier case which I have discussed about the example related to the cat and the lion, right? So you know that the root of the food source is a plant. So speciality here is that, my dear children, if you take a plant, okay, plant is the main product or main thing that is in our environment which can synthesize the solar energy into chemical energy, right? If there are no plants in our environment, there is no that kind of a synthesis process which is going to occur. That's why there is no other animals, right? So main energy source in our planet, right, is the sun. So all of us is going to utilize solar energy. All of us is going to utilize solar energy, right? But however, by going around here and there, or by keeping your arm like this, we can't absorb solar energy into our body, right? But however, with the help of the plants, we receive solar energy. I can show it to you like this. So if you take plants, through the process of photosynthesis, right, through the process of photosynthesis, plants are going to absorb sunlight. And this sunlight is getting converted into chemical energy. In simple, we refer these chemicals as food. Yes, food is a type of a chemical, right? You know that food, if you take food, right, the main component contained within food, main three components contained within food: carbohydrate, proteins and lipids, and minerals and all the other stuff. Mainly they are having carbohydrate, proteins and lipids. Mainly they are having those things. So my dear children, sunlight is getting converted into that energy contained within carbohydrates, proteins and lipids. Mainly plants are going to produce carbohydrates now. In fruits there are plenty of glucose, right? In fruits produced by plants there are plenty of glucose. That's why we can feel a sweet taste in fruits. So sunlight, the main energy source in our earth, is getting converted to different types of chemical energies. Different types of energies, right, contained in different types of chemicals, right? So when we are going to consume this food, right, this is the one which is going to happen. So plants by photosynthesis absorbing sunlight. Okay, I'll mention as absorb sunlight, and this absorb sunlight is getting converted to chemical energy, mainly into food, right? Then after, during the consumption of this food by animals, energy is received by animals, right? So this is the thing which is going to happen mainly. So ultimately, sunlight which is getting absorbed by the process of making food, or in simple photosynthesis, is going to be stored within the animals also. So my dear children, even us, right, each and every animal in the environment finally carries the solar energy that is stored in our sun. So that's why it is referred as the main source of energy in our solar system. Sun is the one which is going to provide the energy. But however, without plants, we won't be able to receive that energy. So photosynthesis is the main process which helps to convert the sunlight or solar energy into chemical energy, so that those things can be utilized by the animals in order for their survival. Right? So my dear children, it is given that plants are autotrophic, which means they can produce their own food. Hence, plants contribute for the existence of themselves. They help for the existence of themselves as well as for the animals. So that's why I told you that without plants, there are no animals, right? So they're going to help for themselves plus for us as well. So this is a brief about the autotrophic organisms and plus how the energy is getting stored within us and each and every animal because of the photosynthesis process. Right then, so let's move on with the other things to see what are the other contents in our lesson. Observe the figure to study about photosynthesis. That is the biological process carried out by the plants to produce food. Now, if you observe this process, the photosynthesis process, okay, if you observe the photosynthesis process, my dear children, so photosynthesis process can be clearly observed within the figure which is given in here. You already know, or you already familiar with this figure, I think. In grade 6 also we studied about the photosynthesis process, but not in this much of a brief, right? We discussed that mainly plants are going to utilize 4 main types of materials, 3 main types of materials and 1 source of energy during the production of food or during the photosynthesis process. Chlorophyll is a substance contained within the plant leaves which helps to absorb sunlight. So chlorophyll is an internal material contained within the plant which helps for the photosynthesis process. Chlorophyll. Then after that, the main 2 key raw materials needed for the photosynthesis process is the carbon dioxide gas and the water. Those are the 2 main raw materials needed for the photosynthesis process. These 2 raw materials are absorbed from the environment, right? So there are 3 materials, 1 internal material and 2 external materials received from the environment. Internal material is the chlorophyll. Means that each and every plant, within the plant itself, chlorophyll is getting produced, right? And it helps for the absorption of sunlight. It helps for the absorption of sunlight, the energy source needed for the photosynthesis process. There are 2 external factors which are needed for the photosynthesis process. Those 2 factors are carbon dioxide gas and water. Right? And those 2 parts are also considered as the raw materials needed for the photosynthesis process. So here it is given in the figure, you can observe the absorption of water as droplets. So roots are the ones which are going to absorb water. See, roots are the ones which are going to absorb water. You can clearly see in the figure. So after that, see, here this water is being transported to the leaf. Water is being transported to the leaf. Then within the leaf you can observe chlorophyll. So chlorophyll is a pigment a unique pigment contained within the plant leaf. That's why the plant leaf is having a green color nature. Because chlorophyll is a green color pigment. Right? Chlorophyll is a green color pigment. So that's going to help for the absorption of sunlight. So that's due to that green color pigment, the plant leaves are having also a green color nature. Okay. So food is being produced. Before that, let's see how does the other type of main raw material are getting absorbed. So the main raw material, the other main raw material needed for the photosynthesis process is the carbon dioxide gas. So there are plenty of carbon dioxide gas in our environment, right? So all of these carbon dioxide particles are getting absorbed by the plant leaves, especially through the pores or the holes contained. Those things are microscopic pores, right? Microscopic pores or holes contained within the surface of the plant leaf, which are referred as the stomata, right? On the surface of the plant leaf, there are small pores or holes. So these holes are microscopic. We can't observe it. Okay, we can't observe those holes from our naked eye. Microscopic. So these microscopic holes are going to, so these holes are referred as stomata. You already know these things. I think you have heard about the stomata under the plant diversity lesson, where we are going to discuss the transpiration process, right? So stomata is a kind of a pore contained within the leaf. So it's going to absorb the carbon dioxide gas. It's going to absorb carbon dioxide gas. So carbon dioxide gas is getting absorbed by the plant leaf through the stomata, right? Through the stomata, carbon dioxide is getting absorbed to the plant leaf. So all the raw materials are now being fulfilled within the plant leaf. Carbon dioxide is getting absorbed by stomata, and the water is getting absorbed by the roots and being transported to the plant leaf. Then within the plant leaf, you can observe the chlorophyll. So sunlight or the solar energy can be directly absorbed by those chlorophyll. Now within the cells of the plant leaves, the photosynthesis process is going to occur, right? That process is going to occur by the utilization of light energy or solar energy and the water and the carbon dioxide. Finally, the food is getting produced within the plant leaves. So that food is transported to each and every place within the plant, mainly to storing agents like fruits or yams, right? Like that way. Mainly they are getting stored into storing agents like fruits and yams. And my dear children, you know that food is the main type of, food is the main type of, or the main product which is created during the photosynthesis process. However, there is a byproduct which is getting created. Byproduct means a secondary product which is not needed for the plant from the photosynthesis process. Actually, oxygen is very important. Now you know that the byproduct which is getting created during the photosynthesis process is oxygen. Oxygen is very important for the plant for their respiration. Plants are also going to respire, right? Plants need oxygen for their respiration process. Each and every organism need oxygen gas for their respiration process. Even the plants plants also need oxygen for their respiration process. Otherwise also the plants can't also live, right? Right? So there is a false science which is going in our society that plants do not need oxygen. Plants do not respirate. Plants are going to respire carbon dioxide. That's totally incorrect. Each and every plant living in our environment, right? Each and every plant living in our environment definitely need oxygen gas for their respiration. They're not going to take carbon dioxide gas during the process of respiration. Respiration and photosynthesis are two different life processes, my dear children. Respiration is the process where the energy is getting created. Photosynthesis is the process where food is getting created, which is necessary for the respiration. However, these two are two different concepts, two different biological processes. So if somebody is going to tell you that plants are going to respire carbon dioxide and it's not going to take oxygen, it is always expelling oxygen gas, that is totally incorrect. Because each and every plant, for the respiration process, I'm not talking about the photosynthesis process, but I'm talking about the respiration. For the respiration process, oxygen gas is getting absorbed by each and every plant. Okay, just like us. For their respiration, they'll be definitely need of oxygen gas. Right? However, now we are discussing about the process of photosynthesis, not about the respiration. During the respiration, plants are going to absorb oxygen gas. However, this photosynthesis process is mainly happening within the plants in order to produce their food. So now they have already prepared their food within the plant leaf. So for this process, the main product is the food production. So in that process, oxygen is not needed. So in that case, what's going to happen here? Plant leaves are going to now expel the oxygen gas. Right? They're going to expel oxygen gas. To expel oxygen gas, plants contain stomata. Through stomata, this process is going to occur. Right? So remember, photosynthesis and respiration are two different things, two different concepts, two different biological processes which is going to occur within the plants. During the photosynthesis, you know that oxygen is going to expel. However, during the respiration, that oxygen is once again being absorbed by the plant. Right? So for the process of respiration, oxygen is important. If somebody is going to tell you that plants are respiring carbon dioxide, then it is totally wrong. Nobody can respire carbon dioxide. Right? Nobody can respire carbon dioxide. Let me explain this thing by using a proper example. Under the combustion process related to the chemical changes in matter, under changes in matter, right? Listen, we discussed that we discussed about the combustion process. So combustion is a special kind of a reaction which is going to occur with the presence of oxygen gas. So during combustion, a fuel is going to react with oxygen gas in production of heat energy and light energy. Right? If you take an engine, right? Under the combustion process, we discussed this thing. Fuel is burning with the help of oxygen, and during that combustion or that burning process, heat energy is released. By utilizing that heat energy, we are going to operate the engines. That's how the engines are going to work. In a power plant, where the electricity is going to be produced by using the fuel, right? By burning fossil fuel. Fossil fuel is getting burned, and burned fossil fuel is going to produce heavy amount of heat energy. Then this heat energy is being transported to a different place where water is present. Then water is getting heated up. From that heated water, steam is getting produced. So this steam is being allowed to pass through a tunnel or else a tube. And that tube is going to finally direct towards a turbine. Then turbine is going to rotate. Turbine is connected with a generator. That's how the energy is going to be produced. Electrical energy. A simple way, right? So my dear children, in order to operate that engine a machine, burning of a fuel is very important. Fuels are getting burned with a supporter of combustion only. We discussed that thing under the fire triangle. I think you can remember. Presence of a supporter of combustion is very important. Otherwise, the combustion will not occur at all. Okay? Otherwise, the combustion is not going to occur at all. So, if you take us, humans, during the respiration process, we are going to burn the food which is obtained from the plants or any other source. Mainly from plants, no? So, plants. We are going to burn that food with the oxygen. So, to burn something, to combust a certain type of a material, oxygen is very important because it is the only gas which is providing a support for the combustion. Right? It's the only gas which is providing a support for the combustion. So, my dear children, at the end, the food which is getting burned with the oxygen gas is getting converted into carbon dioxide and water vapor. Carbon dioxide and water vapor. I think under the combustion process, you could remember each and every fuel which is going to burn with the presence of oxygen gas is going to produce carbon dioxide and water vapor as the main materials or as the main products. So, in engines also we can observe this thing. During a burning of a candle also we can observe this thing. Even in biological bodies like animals we can observe this thing. So, our bodies are exactly like the engines. The difference is that engines are going to use fuel, but we are going to utilize food. That's the only difference here. We are burning food within our body with the presence of oxygen gas. So, plants are also going to do the same process during the process of respiration. Photosynthesis is going to help for the plant to produce that food. Okay, so respiration, photosynthesis, two different processes. Remember that thing. And the other thing is that if you take a plant, right, plants also respire, they also absorb oxygen gas irrespective of the photosynthesis process, right? So, my dear children, this is how the oxygen is getting released to our environment. Oxygen is also important, but however, we are discussing about the photosynthesis process. For the photosynthesis process, the main product utilized by the plant is food. So, that is getting absorbed within the plant or that is getting stored within the plant, and the unnecessary oxygen is getting removed. Unnecessary means for the photosynthesis process it is unnecessary. Okay, for the photosynthesis process only that is unnecessary. That's why it is getting expelled from the plant. So, finally, from the plant, oxygen is released to the environment. So, this is the simple process. This is the process of photosynthesis in a simple manner. The two main raw materials given to the plant leaf are water and carbon dioxide. Okay, the two main raw materials, water and carbon dioxide. Then there is an interior factor contained within the plant leaf which helps for the photosynthesis, which is chlorophyll, and the sunlight or the light energy, solar energy is the main type of energy utilized during the photosynthesis process, right? So, photosynthesis can be simply represented by using this diagram. Right, so let's move on with the next slide to observe what are the things contained in the other lesson part. So, here leaf is the main organ which produces food in plants. We already know that, right? Leaf is the main organ which produces food in the plants. The factors necessary for photosynthesis and the method of obtaining these factors are given below. So, we discussed there are 4 different factors which are very important for the photosynthesis process. So those 4 factors are given here: carbon dioxide, water, chlorophyll, and light energy, right? I'll mention this one as solar energy. So carbon dioxide gas, water, chlorophyll, and light energy or solar energy. So now we are going to discuss here how these main raw materials or how these main factors necessary for the production of food or for the photosynthesis is being obtained from the environment. You know that chlorophyll is not an external factor, it's an internal factor. So mainly we are discussing about how these 3 other factors getting absorbed to the plant leaf from the environment. So let's head on to see what's the methods of obtaining these 3 other factors other than the chlorophyll thing. Okay, so first one is given carbon dioxide gas. So carbon dioxide, it enters into the plant leaf through stomata from the atmosphere. So I already told you that through the stomata it's going to absorb into the plant, right? Through stomata. And carbon dioxide is getting absorbed from the atmosphere. Atmosphere contains plenty of carbon dioxide. So that carbon dioxide is getting entered to plant leaf, right? By or through stomata, carbon dioxide gas. Then after that, water. So root hairs, small structures contained within the root. Now main root comes like this. Then there are lateral roots. This is the main root. Then after that there are lateral roots. Then within the lateral roots there are again smaller roots which are going here and there. Then at the edge of those roots there are small like fibers like things. These are the ones which are referred as root hairs, right? Root hairs. At the end of the smaller roots, not the main roots, under the lateral roots, then after that the smaller roots which are coming, then even in that also there can be smaller roots. However, at the very end of each and every lateral roots, you can observe root hairs. Okay, so these root hairs are the ones which are going to absorb water necessary for the plant in the process of photosynthesis. Okay, root hairs are the ones which are absorbing the root hairs are the ones which are absorbing water, which is helpful for the photosynthesis process for the plant. So the root hairs absorb water from soil. Then it is transported to the leaf through the xylem. Xylem is a special kind of a tissue contained within the plant leaf, a tube kind of a tissue that helps for the transportation of water, right? That's the plumbing system around the plant which helps to transport water within the plant. The plumbing system, xylem. Xylem is a special kind of a tissue made up with several cells, mainly 4 types of cells. You'll be learning about the xylem tissue very well when you go to grade 11 under the living tissues lesson part. Up to now you just remember it's the plumbing system around the plant which helps for the transportation of water. Okay, xylem, a special kind of a tissue made up with different types of cells that helps for the transportation of water. So my dear children, root hairs are going to absorb water from the soil, right? Water is absorbed from the soil. You know that soil contains water. So that water is getting absorbed by the root hairs, by the plant. Then it is transported to the leaf through xylem. So xylem, through xylem, these are getting transported to the leaves, right? Xylem is the special tissue which helps in transportation of water. Then number 3, chlorophyll, the internal factor. Chlorophyll, green color pigment which is found within the chloroplast in cells. So chloroplast is the special structure, right? Chloroplast is the special structure contained within the cells. These structures which is contained within the cells are referred as organelles. So in a cell there are different organelles, right? In a cell there are different types of organelles. One organelle present within the plant leaf is chloroplast. Okay, so these organelles are contained within the cell, inside the cell. Okay, you know that a plant cell can be drawn like this, simply like this. So these are the special structures, okay, like these, right? So those are the special structures that can be identified within a plant leaf cell. These structures are referred as organelles. So within each and every plant leaf cell, right, special kinds of ones, we can observe a special kind of a structure, special kind of an organelle which is referred as chloroplast. Within the chloroplast you can observe chlorophyll. That's why I told you that it's an internal factor which is already getting produced by the plant leaf cells. It's automatically getting produced within the leaf cells, right? So a green color pigment which is found within the chloroplast in cells, they absorb light. So they are the ones who are going to absorb light energy or the sunlight or solar energy. Okay, solar energy is being absorbed by, right, the chlorophyll. So chlorophyll is contained within the cells. That's why I told you that it is an internal factor. So that's the only internal factor which is contained within the plant itself. So these things are produced within the cells, right? Chlorophylls are getting produced within the cells of the plant leaf. In that cell specially, there is an organ called or organelle called the chloroplast. Okay, chloroplast. So within the chloroplast, you can observe this green color pigment called as the chlorophyll. So chlorophyll is the one which is going to help to absorb sunlight or the light energy necessary for the photosynthesis. Then finally we are coming towards the last and final factor necessary for the photosynthesis process. So that is light energy, the energy source. Chloroplast absorb light energy from the sunlight fallen on the surface of the leaf. So chlorophyll is the one which is going to absorb sunlight. So you know that chlorophyll is contained within the chloroplast, the organ called chloroplast, organelle, right? Organelle called the chloroplast. So chloroplast then finally going to absorb light energy from the sunlight fallen into the surface of the leaf. Now all the 4 factors are now being fulfilled. Carbon dioxide, water, chlorophyll and light energy or the solar energy. So now these factors are being collected within the plant cell, leaf cell, and these factors are now interacting each other, giving out a chemical reaction. From that chemical reaction, food is getting produced and oxygen gas is getting expelled. So my dear children, this is how the photosynthesis process is going to occur. So these are the main 4 factors and the way how these things are getting absorbed or getting obtained from the plant. Right. So this is how the photosynthesis is going to occur within a plant and how the factors necessary are getting obtained. Right. So let's move on with the next part. So photosynthesis process can be simply given by using this formula. Before that, there are 3 points given. Let's see what are those special points. Food is produced in an organ called chloroplasts, which can be found in plant cells. So I told you already this thing. These things are called as organs, organelles. Organelles can be found within the cells. So within the chloroplast, especially in the chloroplast, I told you that chlorophyll is present. So at the place where chlorophyll is present, sunlight is getting absorbed, or solar or light energy is getting absorbed. So at that place, you can observe the photosynthesis process. At that place, then you can observe the food which is necessary for the plant. So here it is given, food is produced in an organ called the chloroplast, which can be found in plant cells. So within the plant cells, there are small structures which are called as chloroplast. So within the chloroplast, you can observe, right? Within the chloroplast, you can observe the food which is getting produced. Okay, right. Photosynthesis is the process of producing food in chlorophyll containing cells. Now, my dear children, this is really important. Producing food in chlorophyll containing cells. So in order to absorb sunlight, I told you that chlorophyll is really important. There are some other plant cells in different other kinds of locations where we can't observe chlorophyll. So if you can't observe chlorophyll, then they should be in different colors. Of course, they are in different colors. If you take the stem of the plant, right? Stem of a grown plant nearly in brown color. It is having a brownish color because there is no chlorophyll in it. There are no chloroplasts, right? So therefore, there is no photosynthesis process which is going to occur in those cells. If you take root cells, photosynthesis is not going to occur within the roots. It's because, right? It's because they do not have chlorophyll, right? So photosynthesis is the process of production of food, not in each and every plant leaf, not in each and every plant cell, but chlorophyll containing plant cells, right? Chlorophyll containing plant cells. So my dear children, for production of food or producing food in chlorophyll containing plant cells. So not only in leaves, in some different special kinds of plants, there can be chlorophyll within the stem as well. That's why you can observe the stem in green color. If you take cactus, so in cactus, photosynthesis is going to occur within the stem of the plant, as the leaves are have been reduced to spines. So stem of the plant is the one which is going to carry out the photosynthesis process. That's why the cactus stem is in green color, as they contain chlorophyll, right? So production of food in chlorophyll containing cells. Okay, food is produced within chlorophyll containing cells. Mainly it is leaf cells, but however there can be other places as well. Okay, like for an example, stem of the cactus plant. Using carbon dioxide and water by absorbing light energy from the sunlight. So this is CO2, this is carbon dioxide. Actually, it is being written as CO2 is like this, not directly to with the alignment of these, not like these in a simple, like in a straight row, but you have to write it down below the oxygen, CO2 like this. Okay, this is called as the subscript. So you have to subscript 2, not like this. So my dear children, carbon dioxide gas, remember CO2 means carbon dioxide gas, okay, carbon dioxide gas. So chlorophyll containing cells using CO2, carbon dioxide, water by absorbing sunlight, by absorbing light energy from the sunlight. So once again, photosynthesis is the process of producing food in chlorophyll containing cells. Food is getting produced within the chlorophyll containing cells using carbon dioxide and water, and by absorbing light energy from the sunlight. So photosynthesis is the process of creation of food within chlorophyll containing cells by utilizing water and carbon dioxide as the main raw materials, and with the presence of, or by absorbing, light energy received from solar energy or sunlight. This is what do you mean by photosynthesis in simple. Right? Once again, production of food within chlorophyll containing cells. That's really important, because if there is no chlorophyll, photosynthesis is not going to occur. So it's really important to save chlorophyll containing cells. So photosynthesis is the process of creating food within chlorophyll containing cells by utilizing carbon dioxide and water, by absorbing light energy received from sunlight. So this process is referred as the photosynthesis. Okay. The products of photosynthesis are glucose and oxygen. So the products which is created from the photosynthesis, products created within the photosynthesis process. You know that food is the main product created. Actually, food can be further divided into simplest form of food. The simplest food form is glucose. Right? You know that athletes are given with glucose. It's because that they could get instant energy. Each and every food item that we are going to eat finally getting converted into glucose and getting absorbed into our blood. Glucose is getting burned with oxygen in production of energy. So glucose is the simplest type of food that we obtain each and every other complex foods. Now if you take bread, right? If you take bread contains large amount of carbohydrates. These carbohydrates are made up with glucose. Each and every carbohydrate is made up with glucose. However, the thing is that the number of glucose molecules or number of glucose particles are differ from one place to another. From bread to rice, the number of glucose particles are going to differ. That's why they are giving out a different kind of a taste. Right? In fruits, there is also carbohydrate. There is glucose. But however, the thing is that the number of particles, glucose particles, that particle count is different. That's why different tastes are given. Okay. For a simple example, if there are only two glucose particles, then it is very sweet. If there are more glucose particles, then it doesn't carry a sweet taste. Right? 2 glucose particles, those are like sugars. That sugar that we consume with our tea, sugar, they contain 2 glucose particles. sugars. Okay, if there are large number of glucose particles like bread, rice, in that case there is less amount of, or there is none of those sweet tastes. So that's how these properties are going to change. So my dear children, no matter, however, each and every food contains glucose. So glucose is the simplest type of food that can be observed in each and every food item. So during the photosynthesis process, the simplest form of food is getting produced, which is glucose. And the secondary product is the oxygen gas. So glucose and oxygen are the two main products which is getting created during the photosynthesis process. Glucose is the main product, the main food item, and oxygen is the secondary product or the byproduct which is getting expelled from the stomata of the leaf. The reaction of photosynthesis can be given as the following word equation. Now there is a word equation which is given here. By looking at this word equation, you can get a knowledge, or you can write down this formula related to the photosynthesis. So photosynthesis is going to occur by utilizing carbon dioxide with water as the raw materials. Then light energy, this is the energy source. Chlorophyll absorb light energy. And glucose, this is the main product. Oxygen, this is the byproduct. Right, byproduct. So this is the photosynthesis process in a word equation, by using a word equation. Carbon dioxide and water are the raw materials which are being used. Light energy is absorbed by the chloroplast. So chloroplast is containing chlorophyll that helps for the absorption of light energy received from the solar energy or sunlight. Then by utilizing all of these stuff together, glucose is being produced as the main product, and during that production of glucose, oxygen gas is given out as a byproduct. So this is the photosynthesis process, my dear children, that's going to occur within plant leaves. Okay, right. So I hope you got a sound knowledge about the photosynthesis process, right? And the factors which are important for the photosynthesis process, and the products created during the photosynthesis process, and where does this photosynthesis process is going to occur specially, and about the chlorophyll. So my dear children, it's now we are about to discuss an activity to show that there is going to be photosynthesis within a plant leaf. But however, we'll be discussing that activity in our next chapter. So stay with me with the next chapter also. We'll discuss further things related to the photosynthesis. Especially, we are investigating how to check whether photosynthesis has occurred within a plant or not. So let's hope that you are going to stay with me until the end of the lesson. So we'll meet with our next chapter to discuss an activity related to photosynthesis that's going to prove that photosynthesis has occurred within a plant leaf or not. So we'll meet you on the next chapter.